All right, so we've got a lot of follow-up, and I just have this all under the header of Apple Podcasts because there's a lot happening with Apple Podcasts, and we can kind of just jump right into it. First, there's an Apple Podcast bug that has been fixed. For a long time, we were running into this issue with podcast that descriptions weren't really showing up right. We would see it, and we didn't know if this was, long-term, if this was their goal or not, but there weren't links inside of the Apple Podcasts app. They weren't showing up right unless you put in like a naked URL, which was, kind of a bummer. We were really hoping they were going to pull those out. And a lot of the formatting options weren't there. And for a long time, we really had no clue where this was going. I'm sure Kevin or I probably sent out some snarky tweets or something saying, like, come on, Apple.
No, none of them were snarky. They were questioning what's happening.
Yeah, I was definitely concerned that it was intentional, and we were seeing Apple say, "Hey, how you can't link to your payment page from Apple, some Apple apps." I was afraid we were going to see you can't link to your podcast stuff if you have an Apple Podcast subscription. Turns out that was a oversight. We actually had a customer forward us an email from Apple saying, hey, we're working to solve this issue. And a few days later, the issue is done.
This is Apple. This is how the Apple operates. And I do really love everyone on the Apple team. But it's hilarious because what has it been, like 3 months that this problem has been persisting, and we've been tweeting and we've been emailing and we've been talking to everybody else in the industry, and Apple has been like radio silence, like nothing, no comment. And then hundreds and thousands of emails I'm sure they've gotten in that time. And then they responded to somebody and said, oh yeah, we're aware of it. It'll be fixed soon. And then the next day, like, links work. Like,
that would cause me an unbelievable amount of anxiety. Right. I don't know.
But they don't talk about stuff until it's ready. Like, that's
I know.
Just Apple's MO. Like, when it's ready, we will tell you. Before then, we've got no comment. And so, I mean, I think it's sometimes it's frustrating and it's hard to operate in that world. But it's like, if you know Apple, this really shouldn't be a huge surprise, right?
Well, we're on the other end. I think that's probably why I work here and not Apple. Also, Apple never offered me a job. That's another big piece. But when we have like the stats all of a sudden are delayed by an hour, and now we're on like Twitter, like, hey, stats are delayed here. Oh, we're working on it. Here's the update. It's going to be another 15 minutes. Here's another update. Kind of like constantly talking with our customers. If we had something pretty big that was changed or possibly broken, and you were like, no matter what, do not acknowledge it. Don't talk about it for 3 months. I would be in counseling. I would be like anxiety disorder. It would be like, I don't think I could do it. It would be way too much stress because it'd be like, feel like I was constantly just ignoring people. So I feel for everybody who's on the support team who had to kind of be like, oh, thank you for the info.
So that's the first bit of news. The links work, formatting works. If you had like bullets and like paragraph breaks, it's not just like one massive jumble of letters like the old Spotify app. If you guys remember that, the OG Spotify app.
That was the original.
No formatting. Just wild, wild west. Whatever you throw in there, it don't matter. We're going to repurpose it and do whatever we want with it.
There's actually one wrinkle that when I was testing this before the show that I realized if you just search for a show and you just look at the description, there's no links. Still does all the formatting, but the links, actually like the HTML links, I don't know how like naked URLs look, how they work, but the actual clicking on words to go to a link, those are not showing up. That I could totally see being intentional, that you don't know what this podcast is. You're just kind of reading about it. Maybe Apple doesn't want you just clicking on random links and who knows what website you show up on. So when you when you follow or you download an episode, then that's when you'll actually see all of that formatting. So if for some reason, maybe you, like me, use a third-party app to listen to podcasts, and then you go check your own show in Apple Podcasts, and you're all of a sudden like, no, this isn't fixed, go ahead and subscribe to the show and then look at it, because that's how your listeners are actually experiencing the episode.
Right. And so I would recommend, one of the things you asked about are, before you follow the show, do the links work? And HTML links do not. And you asked about like full URLs. Do they work? They do. And so for any link that's important or that you think you might want somebody to be able to click on, even if they're following your show or not, you should go ahead and add the .com to the end of that. So you can still write things like whatever, this show is hosted on Buzzsprout. But if you put buzzsprout.com, then it will actually be a link.
Do you have to do the full
or not.
HTTPS://
You don't have to have the HTTPS://. It's
Okay.
really looking for like a word and a dot extension. So I've seen a lot of those. Like Wondery just published their whole catalog as a Apple Podcast channel, and you can subscribe to it and stuff. And I was looking at a lot of their shows, and it looks like as part of that, setting up that channel, they went through and updated all their episode notes, show notes, whatever you call them, descriptions. And they, not everything, like when you follow, you do see more links, but it seems like the main ones, like to the, I don't know, I guess there's a Dr. Death and they're doing a TV show or something. And like the links to the TV show stuff like that, they were intentional about going in there and putting the .com or the / or whatever. But you don't have to do the prefix stuff, the HTTP, HTTPS, that's not necessary.
Yeah, all this assumes, though, that people actually download your episodes and listen to them, which is not something we should always assume. So that bug was fixed, but a new bug may be still out there for Apple Podcasts. Sounds like about the end of May, and there's a new Apple Podcasts app on May 24th, so it's probably about then. There seems to be an issue with some auto downloads in Apple Podcasts fail, and so people don't actually see the episode show up in their app. And so this is translated to I think, what have we seen? 27% drop in Apple Podcast downloads month over month. So from that month of May and month of June. And we've definitely seen this in our Buzzsprout global stats, significant drop in Apple Podcast plays. And we are pretty confident it's related to this bug. Kevin, you kind of were talking earlier about how it's kind of in a way not totally a bug.
So all podcast apps operate a little differently. Some of them will automatically download episodes that you subscribe or follow and queue them up so that when you're ready to listen, there's no waiting. Or if you want to listen on a plane or a train or somewhere where you might not have strong connectivity, it's ready to go. And Apple Podcast was one of the apps that did that for you. And I think by default, it would always try to keep like the 3 latest episodes. But if you hadn't listened to any of them in the past 30 days or something, it would stop auto downloading. It had some defaults in the app and they were pretty reasonable. And then you could change your defaults. You could say, no, I want the latest 5 episodes and download them all, whether I'm listening or not, or whatever. You could change some options in there. Well, all those options, they might have been tweaked a little bit, but they came into the new version of the Apple Podcast app. Unfortunately, they didn't work. And so the auto downloading, even though it had some defaults and you could change things, some people were experiencing a bug where it wasn't auto downloading even if you had it turned on. And so that did impact download numbers. But if somebody clicked and listened to the episode anyway, then it would still register as a download. So it did impact numbers overall. And we're not sure if is that an indication of a bunch of episodes get downloaded in Apple Podcasts that people never listen to? Or and this is probably some percentage of that, is that people rely on the notifications. And I don't have clarification on that. I don't know if you do, Albin, but I don't know if the notification system continued to work even though the auto downloading didn't. My hunch is that no, that they weren't getting notifications.
That's mine too. I don't know that for sure. Since I don't use Apple Podcasts, I use Overcast. Though, I mean, obviously these are totally unrelated. I ran into some issue with a couple podcasts on Overcast not downloading automatically. This may be 2-3 weeks ago. And I was like, oh, why'd they skip a week? And I didn't look. And then a few days later, I was like, they didn't put out another episode. And then I went to the feed and pulled, and yep, now those 2 episodes were there. And then I downloaded them.
And it's important to recognize Overcast uses the Apple API to pull episodes in, or at least they did. I don't know if now they're using Podcast Index.
They used both. I think this is totally unrelated. This has nothing to do with the same bug. I was just trying to, I was just remembering, like, the process for me was I assumed the bug was not in the app and the notification settings. The bug was my podcast host people that I listened to had just decided not to release one and didn't let anyone know. And so I think that we've got a little of like column A and column B in this 27% drop. Yeah, there's some percent for sure that are people who probably weren't listening and they continued to not listen when the episodes didn't download. And then I think there's some that are probably the group that I would be in that don't see the download, go, oh man, there's not an episode. And then they just move on with their life. So I know that the way that Apple's language was about this, listening is unaffected, which I think is, I'm not 100% sure if I would argue. I mean, if you want to listen, it's unaffected, but the prompt to listen is affected. The issue can reduce download numbers reported by third-party hosting providers like Buzzsprout, and will be resolved with a software update in a couple weeks. So they put this out a little while ago on the 1st, so 2 weeks ago. That tells me like we're going to be waiting for a new version of iOS, I think, before this bug is resolved. Seems like some stuff Apple can update in the app, just fix at any time, and then some stuff kind of needs the software update. So this looks like a software update one, and I think we're going to be waiting, at least another week or two until we see some other cool stuff, I'm sure, for Apple Podcasts, but also getting downloads back to where they were.
We don't have a ton of details about the bug. It doesn't seem like it's affecting everybody. It feels like it's affecting some, and I don't know if I don't know if that means just some phones, some devices, or if it's just some podcasts. Like if there's but we don't have any clarification on that. So we're continuing to test and look around. I think the biggest impact would have been, and I don't use Apple Podcasts as my daily podcast player, but I do know that when you go to the Listen tab in Apple Podcasts, they have an up next. They sort of like auto build a playlist for you. And I think that's based on the most recent episodes from the podcast that you follow. And I don't know, because my phone I can't seem to replicate this behavior of it not auto downloading all the podcasts that I follow seem to have 2 or 3 episodes queued up.
Yeah.
As I would expect. So if anybody's out there who listens and, has run into this bug on your end, we'd love to hear about it. I'm really interested in if it's populating the what's next, even if it's not download, or up next, even if it's not downloading the episodes in the background.
Yeah. Drop us a comment in the YouTube video on our new channel. That'd be a great way to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
If you're seeing that behavior and happen to use Apple Podcasts. Hey, Travis here. We hope you enjoyed that clip from Buzzcast. If you want to listen to the entire episode, you can listen to the audio version in your favorite podcast app, and we'll leave a link to that in the description below. Or if you want to watch the video version, you can find that on our Buzzcast YouTube channel. So you can just click the subscribe button right up here to go and get new episodes as they come out every other week. Or you can click this image down here to watch the full version of this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, keep podcasting.